Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast we recommended last week. And at the end of this episode, we're going to kick it off for next year, guys. This is the season 4 finale of the PDS.
Season finale.
So this is going to be episode 42 for this season. So if you include Todd's, we put out 84 episodes of content, not including the live streams of like games and stuff. So we've done a lot of stuff, guys.
Yeah, I guess it's a good time to say thank you for listening to our shenanigans for all of those episodes. We really appreciate everybody joining us on this ride for sure.
Yes, thank you. And we did that whole like end of the season thing that they do on Spotify in particular, where they kind of give you all the stats. Stats were kind of crazy, I'm not going to lie. We grew a lot this year. And in places that we never thought we were going to grow, we grew like 350% in freaking Brazil. Thank you, brothers and sisters in Brazil. You guys are amazing. We grew like almost 200% here in the US. It's been a really good year for the Podcast Discovery Show. And we integrated it into video. Well, yeah, video and live streaming with our YouTube and our Twitch. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of new stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. But all that to say, this is the final episode of the Podcast Discovery Show for this season. But we will be back the beginning of January with some brand new stuff. And like we do every year, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to see how we can improve. So it's just going to get better from here, because that's what we always want to do, is always be discovering and always be getting better.
Yeah. Should we introduce ourselves?
No.
That's Kirk, and I'm Zach.
No, so, yeah, Zach, if they don't know who we are 84 episodes in this season, then I don't know what to say.
No, we have to believe in our own advice. What if somebody's listening to it for the first time?
I'm kidding. I completely forgot. It's been too long.
I was messing with you.
Yes, I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach. And this week we're talking about a cool show called Endless Thread. And Endless Thread I actually found because I think it was funny enough, I think it was a Reddit thread about shows that are good to binge. You know, shows that you can listen through a lot of them and just kind of, because Kirk has done those with Reply All. He's done it with a lot of shows. But there's something about some of these where you're learning something each time, and you can just kind of keep going back episode after episode, and it's always good. 99% Invisible is another great one. Radiolab. A lot of these are really good for this. And Endless Thread is in that same vein, but this show is about Reddit itself. Endless Thread is hosted by Ben Brock Johnson and Amory Sivertson. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Sivertson may be it. And made by WBUR. It's a new podcast from WBUR and Reddit, and it delves into Reddit's boundless communities with the help of Reddit and Redditors, exploring some of the most compelling stories of the internet. This is a show for Reddit connoisseurs, skeptics, and the rest of us.
I love how you found a show about Reddit on Reddit.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about it on our podcast that's about other podcasts.
Yep. So, I mean, it's the most meta kind of combination you can get.
For sure. Yeah, so this show is hosted by Ben and Amory. Dang it. I don't remember how you say her name.
Amory Sivertson.
Amory.
I feel like that's what she said. We're very sorry. I should have thought about this before I just jumped right in about, because I'm just reading it.
Dang it. It's time for a break, season break. Ben is a senior producer at WBUR, and he helps direct a lot of the editorial staff and things like that. He co-hosts this show, and he's the tech correspondent for Here and Now, which is another podcast, and he's also a guest host for On Point. I've heard of that podcast. It's a pretty popular one. Amory is the co-host of Endless Thread as well. She previously was one of the founding producers of Modern Love. I had heard of that one before as well. And Dear Sugar Radio. I hadn't heard of that one, but sounds interesting. And before that, she was director and producer for Radio Boston. And she's also a musician. Thought that was interesting. She's releasing her 4th album later this year.
Oh, cool. But yeah, this episode specifically is called Randonauts. And for those of you who haven't heard that term, it is a subreddit dedicated to Randonautica, which is something I'd never heard of. Once I saw that thread about essentially the show itself, I went and looked at it, and they had one called Randonauts. I was like, okay, what Randonautica is an app for your phone that says it uses quantum generated random points to send you somewhere random. So, okay, what it is it's like a geocache with no geocache at the end. You have an app, you push a certain kind of point. It's all very complicated, but how they say that it works is they shoot a laser and then they measure where the photons are going, and that is how they collect random points. So they see where the photons are going, and places where all of the photons go is a certain type of point. Places where very few of the photons go is another type of point. And so they say that this way it's truly random because it's just light doing light things.
I had so many questions, and I mean, you read the bio of Randonautica, you listen to this podcast, and there's still I still have questions.
Yeah, and
we even use the app.
I did really like this. I did really like this about both this episode and kind of how they run the show. You know,
I think that's part of the joy, though, and part of the and part of the fun is there's like a mystery to it. And
there definitely is, and it's 100%.
Random.
It's 100% part of this too, because they also tell you when you're finding your random point to think about something. They essentially, this is their premise. I am not convinced that this is happening, but they say that you put your mental energy into like the nether as you're choosing your point, and it can send you somewhere specific or designed for you is the premise. And so essentially all you do is you just push a button and it sends you somewhere random. And that is what Randonautica is. And there's an entire subreddit dedicated to people who call themselves Randonauts who are just exploring around using this app.
Well, we used this the other day, and I'm wondering which one of us was looking for crack because we ended up at a crack house.
I don't know
in
who
the middle
was.
of nowhere.
We also had the other guy that works with us too, and there's no telling with him. He's a real wild card.
Yeah, it was him. That had to be
no,
him.
But we did. Okay, it's a good place to talk about. We did try this app, so we got it. We went and okay. Disclaimer: where we work is really, really out in the sticks. Mm-hmm. There's nothing going on out there. It's just farms and like houses on big acreage type thing. And so there's not a lot of interesting places to go out there. It's more like you could probably find like some cool nature stuff, I would guess, where you can just something cool looking out there. But essentially, we put in everything and we got sent to, I'm trying to think how to describe this. A small, low income area that
had a dead-end street.
It was essentially a dead end street with an abandoned like single wide. It was like nice enough, but I didn't see anyone in it, and that was it. They just took us to somebody's house.
The joke is, my joke wasn't because it's a low income area. It's more because like that place is known for having a lot of
the area we were sent has drug issues in general. So it was weird. It was a weird experience.
It was weird. And I don't know where else it would have sent us, to be honest. Maybe to a farm, the 7-Eleven, the Dollar General. I don't know where else it could have sent us.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is it's very limited the cool places we could have ended up.
I wish that I want to try this in a city or even a small town because, like you said, we were not in either of those kind of places. No. So we weren't going to end up anywhere interesting. Anyway, we did find some peacocks. We saw some peacocks on the way to the place and a new paintball place. So we did discover some things. I didn't know that paintball was even still a thing. I used to play paintball.
I did not either.
But now there's a new one not too far from where we work. And
I mean, if that counts, we did discover a new paintball place and that we're not going to use. And we discovered there was a peacock out there. So, yeah. No, he says that because I was thinking as I found my place, the thing I was putting out into the into the air to try and shape our destination was discovery. So we were just trying to see what we could discover. But it was overall weird. I would do it again, though. I would do it again in a more populated area. That'd be cool. But this show, Endless Thread, starts out by talking about potentially the worst thing that could happen to you. I think it's pretty, I'm sure you can find something terrible. But 3 kids, I think they said 3 teenagers were using Randonautica and showed up to, I can't remember what was their like thought. I can't remember. Travel. Oh yeah, that's right.
That's what was creepy about it.
Yeah,
That's
they
what
were
was
thinking about travel.
about it.
Yeah, they were thinking about travel, and they got sent to a shoreline in Seattle. I think.
I don't remember where it was.
I think it was Seattle.
I listened to this podcast twice. I have to listen to these things multiple times, and sometimes I still don't remember all of it. That's why it's a book club style discussion, not, in depth, surgically taking notes and things like that. I do take some notes sometimes. I didn't this time.
Yeah. So they are sent to a shoreline in Seattle, and they find a briefcase. And then they find the briefcase and look inside, and there's a trash bag that smells bad. And they immediately called the cops. And what was discovered was the remains of 2 different people in this thing. And the only reason it was found as quickly as it was is because these teenagers were using Randonautica. And so that's kind of how they launch into the episode. But then they start talking about, and one of my favorite things about how this show works, Endless Thread, is they essentially gave space to all the different kind of angles of this application. So they talked to people who were like, oh, I was thinking I want to find something spooky, and I did immediately. Or like there was one where she was like, I wanted to find something that was meaningful and that like had her name there. And so they definitely explored that, like there's like a mystical side to this application. I think that's part of why it has like a community building. And they also talked about how much more popular it's gotten since COVID, because this is something you can do just outside. You can just go around and wander around, and you can still do that. You can
do it in your car. You don't have to get out. And of course, some places you don't want to get out. I liked the idea. Granted, this maybe not applicable everywhere right now during COVID, but finding a new restaurant. That's the thing. I wish there was like a specific, like, hey, I want to find a random restaurant that I've never been to and try some new food, or, a bar or something that I haven't experienced in that sense.
If I knew how to make an app, I would 100% do that, where you just go to random restaurants. You're like, I don't know what I want to eat, and that tells you something.
You just think hot dogs, and then you end up at a place that serves hot dogs.
He says that because he's always thinking about hot dogs. It's just his default thought.
He's got wiener on the brain, huh?
He said it, not me. So after they kind of like let people explore the mystical side of it, they essentially kind of try and break down what the application is. So I probably did not do enough justice to what they're trying to do, but they literally brought in one of the founders of Randonautica to talk about, one, what the purpose of the app is and what they were trying to accomplish, but then two, talk about this specific incident where, because people started saying like, oh, Randonautica sent them to a body. How did they know? Did Randonautica kill these people and put them in a suitcase?
And then tell them themselves.
Yeah, and then immediately send kids there. Yeah, it's a genius crime. But yeah, they talked to actually one of the people who created this application. So that's also a really cool thing. And then they kind of explore the skeptic side, like the hardline skeptic side of kind of this same conversation of, is it even possible that it would in any way be connected to what you're thinking? And I believe he was a psychiatrist from Canada, and he basically just talks about his whole worldview and how it doesn't really seem possible that you would be able to do that you'd be able to send out your mental vibes and affect what's happening.
Yeah. I'm not there with that. I'm not going to lie. I'm not, I don't get it.
I don't know what kind of magic they would have had to have done to making this app for that to actually work. But yeah, I'm skeptical as well. But I just like the premise of when you're doing a show like this. That's because it's an interesting app. It
It's
is.
definitely interesting.
We had like a mediocre experience the first time doing it, but it's an interesting premise where you kind of get to explore around, and it's more just location based than like you go try and find a treasure or anything. You literally are just there to explore. And then you add in kind of the mystical elements, and you have something that it makes perfect sense that people are kind of having conversations about this thing because it's a pretty cool premise. It's essentially if Pokemon Go were spookier.
And could maybe have you stumble. Well, no, there's been some crazy stories with Pokemon Go too. So I remember when that first came out and people were going crazy about it, and people were ending up in place. Why are there so many Pokestops in stinking cemeteries? Because that's weird.
No, because you can wander around there.
And
You
there's
know what I mean?
still okay. So it's funny. My kids wanted to play it again. I don't know, maybe a year ago, which was already the hype was dead. Whatever. And I kind of thought no one's really playing this anymore. We got the app, and we live in this little town, and there's Pokestops everywhere, but there's a bunch of them near the cemetery. And dude, I took my kids, and we were just in the car, but we were hitting all the things. And there was like 4 other cars out there doing the same thing still. And I was like, dude, I guess a lot of people still play this game. And I didn't realize it.
COVID
Yeah.
brings things back.
That was
because,
before COVID, though. But I'm sure that it's actually back pretty strong right now.
Yeah, it would seem like it would be, because the premise is fun, and it's really interesting to see the rise of all these. Augmented reality is probably too strong for Randonautica because it's more
Yeah.
like a geocache, but
Mhm.
uh, the gamifying of having your phone rather than just like playing a game on your phone. You know what I mean? It's not just like you're playing Candy Crush. You're using your phone as like a tool to play a game. It like incorporates travel and exploring and things like that.
No,
So
I do love the premise of like discovery, like literally like discovering something new, ending, being adventurous. It's an adventure, and I get that, and there is an appeal that, I mean, definitely appeals to me. I'm a sucker for, hey,
a
let's
hot
go
dog.
do something to, and a hot dog, but uh, just not knowing where I'm gonna go and just leaving and be like, okay, we're gonna go to this town. And I don't know where we're going to eat lunch, but we're going to figure something out. I don't know, what we're going to do, but we'll find something. And some of the coolest adventures that I've been on have been with zero planning ahead of time.
Oh yeah,
It's always
any
a little bit more
vacation I've
fun.
ever taken, I'm fine with making sure that you hit the main things you want to hit, but there needs to be at least one day that's a random day where just go. You just go wander around and find out where life can take you, Because I feel like that's the really fun thing is kind of when you're wandering around in a city, you can really kind of get the character of it. I feel like that's when you really feel like you're like in the city and really getting it, is because you're just wandering around looking and seeing what all these random stores are, or what all these random monuments or natural scenery. So yeah, I definitely love the premise of this. I'm not sure that it's at all mystical, but it doesn't
No,
matter if it is or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter because the premise is cool. I wish that I better understood how they use a laser to make you a random thing, because it could just be I'm not smart enough for his description. Could be part of it, because like I don't know how
I don't, I
photons
don't,
work. I
I
don't
don't think
know.
so. I don't
I
think that it's us not being smart enough on this one.
Hard to
Most of the time,
tell.
I usually lean towards I'm probably not smart enough, but on this one, I think it's a little woo woo.
Could be, but in the end, it's a pretty fun app. If you want to just go randomly explore, that is available to you now. You can go do that. It's a fun thing, and you should let us know if you find something cool. If you're in a more urban setting, it's probably going to be cooler. Like obviously, they have a crazy list of like don't do any of these million things while you're wandering around to
Yeah,
random
like
places.
don't go on to someone's piece of property if it's,
That was our main concern in the country. It's like
yeah,
we're not going to just like wander around onto somebody's
you get
land.
shot. You
Yeah,
get
no,
shot for
pass
sure.
on that. But yeah, it's a cool app. But then the show really did highlight the community well. They really did bring out kind of what this whole thing was about. I had never heard of this before, and apparently it has blown up a lot since COVID and everything, but I never heard about it. And it really does kind of take you down the entire path of each different angle you can look at this thing. And then kind of the fandom, because that's what subreddits end up being. They end up being fandoms, communities based around a thing. And it can be a great thing. It can be a stupid thing, just like anything else on the internet. It's a double-edged sword of the internet. It can be amazing and it can be terrible. But Endless Thread is a really cool show. And if you're at all interested in learning new stuff, or Reddit, obviously, if you're interested in kind of Reddit, small niche communities,
there's so many things.
It's a great thing.
I mean, literally, there's so many amazing things on Reddit, so many horrible things on Reddit. It's just, and they talk about a lot of them. And I'm looking at some of the things. I actually had listened to an episode of this show before. I think it was specifically about sleep studies and stuff like that. But they have one about LSD and hot sauce. They have one about
LSD and hot sauce.
Yep. They have one. Okay, we started playing that next one where they was talking about a lady that was trying to make a suit for a llama, and I want to finish the rest of that.
I do want to do that one.
Because
what was that? No stupid questions? Was that the subreddit they were doing? Because she asked about what was general measurements for a llama.
What are the dimensions of an adult llama?
Yeah, what are the dimensions of an adult llama is one of the best questions I've ever heard. And what she was doing, she had to make a suit for a llama. And so she asked the internet for some general dimensions.
Her question was this: I've been hired to make a tuxedo for a llama, and I don't have its measurements.
I mean,
what's not to love about that question or that discussion?
It's a normal problem people have. Your llama needs a tuxedo. So you go hire a llama tailor. But the llama tailor doesn't know the size of llama you have.
I have a question. What do you think the occasion was for the llama to be in such
clearly a wedding? It's the ring bearer.
I was going to ask if you think it was in a wedding or what was going on.
I guess it could be like a butler, like their llama's a butler.
It's a llama butler.
I don't know. I don't think there's a great answer. I'm trying to think what would be the most appropriate answer.
All answers are great for this, I think is the true. They talk about angel glow, which I want to listen to that one because that one is crazy. The whole Civil War thing.
Oh yeah.
Like all these wounds on the started getting, I guess, covered with this some sort of fungus that was actually healing the soldiers' wounds, but it glowed in the dark.
Yeah, it was like bioluminescent somehow.
The Battle of Shiloh. Oh man, crazy story. And I would like to learn more about it. Anyway, they talk about a lot of different things. Of course, they talk about QAnon because there's a giant community on Reddit about that. So QAnon casualties, I'm sure that one is something I don't want to even think about anymore right now, but they talk about a lot of different things on Reddit that are fascinating. And so it's a great show. And no matter what you're into, there's got to be an episode that you would like.
Yeah, no, or if you're just interested in not having to go to the subreddit, but to know that it exists, that's also a great option for Endless Thread. But yeah, it definitely is one of those shows. It was like I said, I saw it basically as a show that you could binge, and you 100% could. You could learn about a bunch of really small Reddit communities and the sometimes weird things that they're about. But yeah, really, really awesome show. And had a great time listening to it and exploring, even though our destination wasn't great for the first time.
We're going to have to give it another try. Maybe next time we're in town or something like that. Maybe not being from our location at work.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So I guess that brings us to, what we're going to kick off 2021 as a recommendation. And we kind of always pick a long form podcast for episode 1. Like, I think that's when we did Hardcore History.
It is.
Because we knew it was like 6 hours.
We wanted to give people plenty of time.
So you have plenty of time to listen to this. I think this is going to be around 3 hours total. So we're giving you 3 episodes of one show. It's such a good show. And it was really good. Actually just listened to it on our little road trip. and we listened to the whole thing, and it's just great. And by great, I mean it's fascinating. For
It's
us, it
hilarious.
had like this weird nostalgia. It was very funny. And the name of the show is Fraudsters. And we're going to talk about the first 3 episodes, which I have to say, for a pilot episode, it was great.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I wish our first episode was that good.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very impressive pilot. But yeah, it's really good.
But it's about Miss Cleo. Do you guys remember the
Okay,
Miss
we're
Cleo
dating
commercial?
ourselves here. But who else remembers
definitely.
Miss Cleo? Because we did. We remembered those commercials about calling Miss Cleo. I never did it because I knew my mom would kill me if I got charged on the phone to talk to a psychic.
$5 a minute was it?
Yeah,
Was
it was
after
$5
the first
a minute.
3 minutes or something? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So I knew my mom would kill me even if it was $1 a minute. Just any phone bill that would have been a problem. But yeah, Miss Cleo, easily the most famous Jamaican phone psychic in the history of the world. But yeah,
Is she Jamaican? I guess you guys will have to find out when you listen to the podcast.
oh no, it goes. Honestly, the first of 3 episodes is about Miss Cleo. Then it goes deeper, and
There's so many layers. It's like,
it's really cool. It's a really good
There's-
show.
and there was a lot more fraud in that situation than I would have thought, to be honest.
There was lots of fraud. There was fraud everywhere.
So much. It was so many frauds. But it's a great show. It's called Fraudsters. We're going to do the first 3 episodes, and they're all about Miss Cleo and what are the psychics something hotline.
Psychic Readers Hotline,
Yep,
something like
that's
that.
it. Man, such horribleness, such horrible things.
Yeah. If you don't want to be disturbed by the amount of shenanigans going
Exploitation,
on,
I guess. Exploitation of like most of the time people
Yeah.
that are just looking for some sort of validation or hope or lifeline.
it's all pretty slimy. Pretty much all of it's pretty slimy. But yeah, it's honestly extremely interesting. The hosts are really funny. We think you guys are going to love it.
Yep. And remember, guys,
There's always more to discover.
we will see you guys in 2021. Thank you for listening to the Podcast Discovery Show. We would love for you to get in touch. We have a Facebook group called the Podcast Discovery Club, and our Twitter is @thepdsofficial. We also record the show live every Friday night at 8 o'clock on Twitch. We would love for you to be part of the show while we're recording it.
If you want to support the show, we have a number of ways you can do that. From our Patreon to our affiliate links, they're always linked in the show notes. In the end, you support the show just by listening, and it means the world to us. So thank you so much for being a part of our journey.
This was a podcast from the